Level 1 doesn't start with money. It starts with a lie you believed. That real estate is safe, predictable, easy, buy, rent, relax. That's what they told you. But the moment you step in, you realise something's off. The numbers don't add up. The stress hits harder than expected. And suddenly, you're not building wealth. You're fighting to survive your first deal. This is where most people disappear. Quietly, no posts, no success stories, just regret. So if level 1 is supposed to be the beginning, why does it feel like a trap? And more importantly, how do a few escape it, while others never do? In the next 15 minutes, you're not just watching a video. You're stepping into a transformation most people never survive. From zero money, zero connections, to controlling assets that change your entire bloodline. You'll see what really happens behind the scenes, the pressure, the doubt, the silent failures no one admits, the mindset shifts that separate the broke from the builders, and the brutal mistakes that quietly destroy dreams. Because this journey isn't about buying property, it's about becoming someone who can't be shaken by risk, fear, or uncertainty. Stay till the end, because what you're about to learn could completely change your path. Level 0. Broke and clueless. This is where almost everyone begins. No money, no connections, no real plan, just a phone in your hand. Scrolling. You see people standing in front of buildings they claim to own, talking about passive income, freedom, early retirement, and something inside you shifts. I want that life. But here's the uncomfortable truth. You don't even understand how real estate actually works. You think it's about having cash, big savings, perfect timing. So you hesitate, you watch more videos, read more posts, save more tips, but you never move. Days turn into months, months turn into years, and nothing changes because deep down, you're waiting to feel ready. Mistake, believing money is the entry ticket. Reality, clarity is. The people who win early aren't the richest. They're the ones who understand the rules faster. They learn how deals are structured, how financing works, how risk is managed. The shift. You stop asking, how much do I need to start? And start asking, what am I missing that others already know? Because until you understand the game, you're not losing, you're just not playing. Level 2, first deal. This is where everything changes, not on paper, not on Instagram, but inside your chest. Your heart is racing. You're sitting there, staring at documents filled with words you barely understand. Numbers that suddenly feel too real. Commitments that don't feel like theory anymore. This isn't a video. This isn't learning. This is risk. And for the first time, it's yours. Your hands hesitate before that final signature. A voice in your head gets louder. Is this a mistake? Am I overpaying? What if this goes wrong? What if I lose everything? And then, you sign anyway. Welcome to your first deal. Maybe it's a small apartment in a not-so-perfect neighbourhood. Maybe it's a rental you stretched your finances to afford. Maybe it's a risky flip that looked better on paper than it does in real life. It doesn't matter. Because this moment is not about profit. It's about proof. Proof that you didn't just watch, you acted. Proof that you stepped into a game most people are too afraid to enter. But here's the part. No one shows you. The chaos begins immediately. The numbers you calculated, they start shifting. The minor repairs, they're not minor anymore. A leak becomes a plumbing issue. A cosmetic fix turns into structural damage. A good tenant stops responding. Rent comes late, or doesn't come at all. And suddenly, that dream of passive income feels like a full-time problem. Your phone becomes a source of anxiety. Every call, every notification feels like bad news waiting to happen. You check your bank account more often than you'd like to admit, watching money go out faster than it comes in. And in quiet moments, when no one's watching, regret creeps in. You think about the safety you had before, the comfort, the predictability. You ask yourself, why did I do this? And this is the exact moment where most people mentally quit. Not publicly, they don't announce it, but internally, they disconnect, they stop caring, they stop improving. They just try to survive long enough to get out. Because the truth hits hard. Real estate is not passive in the beginning. It's messy, unpredictable, emotionally exhausting, and no one prepared you for that. That's the mistake. Believing your first deal would validate you instantly. Believing it would feel like success right away. But it doesn't. It feels like pressure, like responsibility, like stepping into a version of yourself you're not fully ready to be. And that's exactly why this level matters so much. Because this is where your identity starts to shift. You stop being someone who watches opportunities and become someone who handles problems. You learn things no course can teach. How to stay calm when things go wrong, how to make decisions without perfect information, how to take hits and keep moving forward. You start realizing something powerful. Confidence doesn't come from winning. It comes from surviving what you thought would break you, and slowly, very slowly, things begin to stabilize. You fix what's broken. You adjust your expectations. You learn how to deal with tenants, contractors, unexpected costs. You stop reacting emotionally and start responding strategically. That panic you felt in the beginning, it starts fading, not because the problems disappear, but because you're becoming someone who can handle them. And that's the real shift. You stop chasing perfection. You stop waiting for the perfect deal. You understand that perfect doesn't exist. Only progress does. Because now you see it clearly. It was meant to make you ready. Ready for bigger risks, smarter decisions, stronger opportunities. Because once you survive your first deal, you're not the same person anymore. You don't hesitate the same way. You don't fear the same things. You don't think like a beginner. You've crossed a line most people never reach. And that changes everything. Because now, you're not just playing the game, you understand it. And that's what qualifies you for the next level. Level 3, struggle and survival. This is the phase that breaks most people, not because they're weak, but because no one warned them how heavy this part feels. Cash is tight. Every dollar has a job. Every mistake has a cost. You're balancing everything at once. Your main job, your personal life, and now this property that refuses to stay quiet. Something always goes wrong, always. A tenant calls at the worst possible time. A repair shows up out of nowhere. An expense you didn't plan for hits your account like a punch, and it doesn't happen once. It happens again, and again, and again. There's no clean break, no moment where everything just works. It's constant pressure, and slowly. That excitement you felt in the beginning, it fades, replaced by something heavier. Doubt, it creeps in quietly. Not all at once, but in moments. Late at night, early mornings, in between responsibilities. Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I got lucky the first time. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I should just quit before it gets worse. And that voice, it sounds logical. It sounds safe. Because walking away would solve everything instantly. No more stress, no more uncertainty, no more financial pressure. Just relief. And here's the brutal truth no one likes to admit. Most people choose that relief. They sell early, sometimes at a loss, sometimes just to break even. They convince themselves it wasn't worth it. That real estate is too risky, that they're better off playing it safe, so they walk away, back to stability, back to predictable income, back to a life where nothing feels out of control. And from the outside, it looks like a smart decision, but internally, there's always a quiet question that never leaves them. What if I just held on a little longer? Because this level doesn't look like success, it doesn't feel like progress, it feels like pressure. Constant, unrelenting pressure. Like you're carrying something heavier than you expected, with no clear sign of when it gets easier. And that's exactly why this phase matters. Because this is not where you make money. This is where you make a decision. A real one. Do you go back to comfort, or do you stay in the discomfort long enough to grow into it? Because here's what most people don't realize. This phase is temporary, but quitting, that's permanent. The people who make it through this level aren't the smartest, aren't the richest, aren't the most prepared. They're the ones who simply don't stop. They adjust, they learn, they take hits and keep moving, even when it doesn't feel worth it, even when it's exhausting, even when no one else understands why they're still going. Because deep down, they know something others don't. If they can survive this phase, they won't just have a property, they'll have proof. Proof that they can handle pressure, proof that they don't break easily, proof that they're capable of more than they thought. And once you build that kind of resilience, you don't go backwards. You can't. Because now you've seen what it takes. And you're still standing. But here's the twist no one expects. This phase, it's not a setback, it's the filter. The invisible line that separates people who talk about building wealth from the ones who actually do it. Because real investors, they are not created in comfort. They are not built when everything is working. They are forged when nothing is, when the numbers don't make sense, when the pressure stacks up, when every decision feels like it could cost you everything. That's when it happens. That's when you change. Because in those moments, you're forced to think differently. You can't rely on motivation anymore. You can't hide behind theory. You have to decide, fast, under pressure, with incomplete information, and that's where most people break. But a few, they adapt, they stop reacting emotionally, and start thinking strategically. They ask better questions. What's the real problem here? What's the smartest move right now? How do I protect downside and still move forward? And suddenly, it's not chaos anymore, it's training. Every problem becomes a lesson, every mistake becomes feedback, every setback becomes data. You start seeing patterns, you start understanding risk in a way no book can teach. And here's the powerful shift. You realise you're not building a property portfolio, not yet. You're building something far more valuable. The ability to make clear decisions when everything feels unclear, the ability to stay calm when everything around you feels unstable, the ability to move forward, even when fear is present. That skill, that mental toughness, that clarity under pressure, that's the real asset. Because properties can be lost, deals can fail, markets can change. But once you develop this, you can rebuild again and again and again. And that's why this phase matters more than any success you'll ever see on the surface, because this is where you stop being fragile and start becoming dangerous, not to others, but to your own limits. Because now, pressure doesn't stop you, it sharpens you. And once that shift happens, there's no going back. Level 4, momentum. Something shifts, not loudly, not dramatically, but you feel it. You're not guessing anymore. You're calculating. Where you once hesitated, now you analyse. Where you once doubted, now you decide. Deals start making sense faster. You can look at a property and instantly spot what others miss, the hidden costs, the real potential, the risks behind the numbers. You recognise patterns. You've seen enough problems, enough mistakes, enough outcomes, that nothing feels completely new anymore. And that changes everything, because now you move faster, more confidently, less emotionally, and suddenly you're onto your second deal, then your third, and this time it feels different. Less chaos, less panic, more control. Income starts to stabilise. Not perfectly, but consistently enough to breathe. And for the first time, you feel it, momentum. That quiet sense that things are finally working, that all the stress, all the uncertainty, meant something. But this is where a new danger appears, a silent one, because success, even small success, can distort your thinking. You start believing, I've figured this out. This is easier than people say. I should go bigger, faster. And that's where people fall. Not because they don't know enough, but because they forget what got them here. They start over leveraging, taking bigger loans than they can safely handle. They chase deals that look good on the surface, but don't hold up under pressure. They expand too quickly, too aggressively, without the same caution that protected them before. And eventually, it catches up, because real estate doesn't punish ignorance as fast as it punishes arrogance. One bad deal at this level can erase the progress of 3 good ones. And suddenly, that momentum you felt, it disappears. So the mistake here isn't lack of knowledge, it's overconfidence. Letting early wins trick you into thinking you're untouchable. But the ones who continue rising, they make a different shift, a powerful one. They choose discipline over ego. They slow down. Even when they can speed up, they question deals. Even when they look good, they stick to fundamentals, numbers, risk, long-term vision. Because now they understand something most people don't. Growth is not about doing more deals, it's about doing the right deals. You stop chasing opportunities and start filtering them ruthlessly. You walk away more often than you say yes. And that's the difference. Because now, you're not trying to prove anything. You're trying to build something that lasts. Something stable, something scalable. And that requires control, patience, clarity. Because at this level, not every opportunity is worth taking. And knowing when to say no is what protects everything you've built so far. This is where amateurs speed up and professionals slow down, and that decision determines who makes it to the next level. Level 5, scaling up. Now you're playing a different game, not bigger, different. The rules change, the stakes rise, and the margin for error gets thinner. You're no longer looking at small, safe deals. Now it's larger properties, multi-units, commercial spaces, complex structures, bigger deals, bigger risks, bigger rewards. But here's what truly changes. You're not just buying properties anymore. You're structuring them. You're thinking in layers, partnerships, investor capital, creative financing, deal structures that didn't even make sense to you before. And suddenly, you realize something powerful. You don't need your own money to grow. You need something far more valuable. Trust, credibility, vision. Because now, people are watching you. Investors, partners, lenders. They're not just betting on the deal, they're betting on you. Your ability to execute, your ability to handle pressure, your ability to protect their money. And that changes how you move. Because leverage becomes real at this level. Not just financial leverage, but people leverage, systems leverage, reputation leverage. You're no longer limited by what you have. You're limited by how well you can lead. But here's the catch no one talks about. More scale brings more weight, more responsibility, more moving parts, more things that can go wrong at the same time. One mistake doesn't just affect you anymore, it affects everyone involved. And that pressure, it's different, heavier, more complex. And this is where many investors hit a ceiling. Not because they lack opportunity, but because they try to do everything themselves. They hold on to control. They micromanage. They stay stuck in the mindset that got them here. Doing everything, solving everything, handling everything alone, and it starts breaking them. Because scaling doesn't reward effort, it rewards structure. That's the mistake. Trying to grow bigger while thinking smaller. But the ones who break through, they make a critical shift. They stop being the worker and start becoming the operator. They build teams, they delegate decisions, they create systems that run without constant supervision. Because now they understand. Growth doesn't come from doing more, it comes from building something that does more, without you. This is where you stop chasing deals and start building an engine that can acquire, manage and grow assets at scale. Because at this level, your success is no longer tied to your time, it's tied to your systems. And once that clicks, everything expands. Level 6, system and cash flow. Now it's different, quietly, but completely different. You're no longer reacting to problems the moment they appear. You're managing a machine that runs whether you're watching it or not. The chaos that once controlled your day, it's been replaced by structure, by systems, by control. You have property managers handling tenants, processes for maintenance, clear workflows for acquisitions, leasing and finances. Things don't depend on your constant attention anymore. And for the first time, you can step back, not completely, but enough to breathe. Money flows in, not randomly, not unpredictably, but consistently, whether you're actively working that day or not. And this is what most people imagine real estate to be from the beginning. Passive, predictable, controlled. But here's the irony no one talks about. It only becomes passive after years of being anything but passive, after the stress, after the mistakes, after the nights you questioned everything, after you earned it, because this level isn't built on luck, it's built on everything you survived before, and now you start thinking differently. You're not excited by a single deal anymore. One property doesn't impress you because you understand something deeper. Deals make money, but systems make wealth. That's the shift. You stop asking, is this a good deal? And start asking, does this fit into my system? Can this run without me? Will this increase efficiency or create more chaos? Because now you see the bigger picture. If a deal requires your constant attention, it's not an asset, it's a job, and you've already outgrown that. So you refine, you optimize, you remove friction, you build systems that handle tenant screening, rent collection, maintenance requests, financial tracking. Everything becomes repeatable, predictable, scalable, and that's where real power begins. Because effort has limits, time has limits, energy has limits, but systems, they multiply. They allow one decision to produce results again and again without starting from zero every time. And that's how your income starts to expand. Not through more effort, but through better design. But even here, there's a deeper realization. You're no longer building for survival. You're building for stability, for freedom, for control over your time, your choices, your life. And that changes your priorities. You care less about chasing the next deal and more about strengthening what you already have. Because now you understand, wealth isn't built by speed, it's built by structure. And at this level, you're no longer an investor chasing opportunities. You're an architect designing a system that produces cash flow, with or without you. And once that system is strong enough, you don't just have income, you have leverage. The kind that doesn't just grow, it compounds. Level 7, property empire. This is the level everyone talks about, but almost no one reaches. Because this isn't just growth, it's transformation. You don't just own properties anymore. You control assets, entire portfolios spread across locations, commercial buildings, developments that didn't exist until you created them. Your decisions, they move serious money. One choice can shift millions. And for the first time, you're not thinking about the next deal, you're thinking about direction. Because this level isn't about survival anymore, it's about vision. Where is this going? What are you building long term? What does this become in 10, 20, 30 years? You start thinking in legacy, in impact, in systems that outlive you. And here's the part no one expects. It doesn't feel the way you imagined. There's no dramatic moment, no sudden realization that you've made it. It's quieter than that, more controlled, more intentional, because by now, you've outgrown the need to prove anything. You're not chasing validation, you're executing a vision. But the biggest surprise, it's not the money, it's not the assets, it's you. You're not the same person who started. That broke, confused beginner, scrolling, dreaming, doubting, wouldn't even recognize who you've become. Because the real transformation was never financial, it was internal. The way you think, the way you handle pressure, the way you make decisions. That's what changed everything. The empire, that's just the result. So if you're at level 0 right now, feeling stuck, confused, maybe even behind, good, because this is where it begins. Every investor you admire, every portfolio, every success story started exactly here. No clarity, no confidence, no guarantee it would work, just a decision. They didn't wait to feel ready, they moved anyway, while unsure, while uncomfortable, while scared. And that's the part most people avoid, because it's easier to watch than to risk, easier to learn than to act. But real estate doesn't reward knowledge alone, it rewards participation, consistency, endurance. Because this game isn't about perfect timing, it's about time in the game, staying in long enough to learn what others quit before understanding, to grow into pressure instead of running from it. So forget the idea of a perfect start. There isn't one. There's only a first step, and then another, and another, until one day you realize you're not the same person anymore. So the real question isn't, can you build a property empire? It's this: will you stay in the game long enough to become the person who can?